D-Lake creates.
Seasons are everywhere in our lives. You got tax season, you got fashion season, you got weather seasons, and yes, even run seasons. Like seasons, you gotta change up your clothes, like wearing summer clothes in the winter. That ain't gonna work. So you gotta change things up and adapt. And just like clothes in your closet, I'll teach you how to adapt your eating to all your different run seasons and more on this episode of Trees and D-Lake.
Don't master a lot, don't master a little, just stay in the middle. Don't master all, don't master none, just be a master of some.
What is up? Welcome to Trees and D-Lake, an audio and video content series by Mike Trees and me, Darren D-Lake Runs. Here's Mike Trees, a 50-year plus pro runner and triathlete, on how exactly we want to help you.
And the aim of this podcast is to give, in a light-hearted, amusing and entertaining way, hints and tips to help you all run better and enjoy your sporting life more. So let's see how we can go with that.
What about me? Well, I've been running and doing this endurance sport thing for like 26 years now. I've run a sub 3-hour marathon and I've done an Ironman triathlon in 10 hours. Language warning, on a few rare occasions, we sometimes use some bad words to get our point across. Apologies for that. And last point, we do all of that in a super short, sharp, and concise way because
ain't nobody got time for that.
For most of the year, I end up eating a smart, clean diet, which again, just whole foods. And then I ramp it up to the high carb diet 4 to 6 weeks out. And that's when it's usually just around right before training and after training, I will have processed carbs. I don't like them. The gels, the Cliff Bars, I've got rice milk and coconut water. I like to do that with the powder. It's basically just a powdered form of a sports drink. And I'll put that in with my rice milk. It's just pure carbs. And it's great right before a hard training session or a race because that's what my body needs. I'm topping that gas tank up, that petrol tank up, like you said, and I'm going to burn through that. And then afterwards, it's good as a recovery. But then I'll have, lots of fats, lots of proteins, try to get good fats to recover. So again, my diet is constantly shifting through the year, the season, the months, and the days and the hours of the day. And each diet will support that shift.
These studies on diet always show different things. It seems that diet isn't the biggest factor in longevity. The biggest factor in longevity is actually doing zone 2 aerobic exercise. And they say it's true that you can outrun a bad diet if you do enough exercise. Keep exercising. That's a much better predictor for health and longevity than diet. But don't neglect diet. Keep your bad fats, saturated fats. You still keep off the fast foods in general. You still keep off the donuts and the fried foods and the fatty foods. And you stick to a whole food diet, a homemade foods, unprocessed, and you're probably gonna live a reasonable, unless you're unlucky with other genetic factors, reasonably healthy life so long as you're exercising. And exercise is a much better predictor of longevity than diet is.
So here's the difference on low carb, smart, clean eating and high carbs. Low carb obviously is 50 grams or less of carbs. I think extreme low carb is 20 grams per less per day of carbs. So keto diet is one. I like the slow carb diet personally, which is beans and lentils and legumes and all that. You can eat that. But what I do is I cycle those through. So I'll get into when to use them. So smart, clean eating for me is just eating whole foods, getting, my macros in balance, complex carbs usually. And then high carb diet is more around probably the 4 to 6 weeks before a specific race, or maybe even the day of like a long run or a hard run, or maybe even a few hours. And then I kind of regress back to maybe a smart, clean eating diet. If you want to try any of these more of the extreme diets, like the high carb diets or the low carb, please consult with a proper nutritionalist or dietitian, whatever you want to call it, wherever you live.
If I kept on a clean diet with lower carbs, my cholesterol and my blood profile was good. But this is the killer. You then say, run a 10K. Well, I couldn't do that on a keto diet. Absolutely no way. You've got to have the carbs in. So this is where it's that balance that a much higher, it's a balanced diet really. It's higher than the keto diet. It's lower than the traditional high carb diet that I survive on mostly. But generally, when it comes to racing, and I'm doing an Ironman shortly, that last week, I'll be cutting down a lot of the fats, and I'll be cutting down the proteins towards the end, and just making sure I'm fully loaded with simple carbs, which probably long term is not good for the body, but short term it's going to get me through the race. So
I got away with eating whatever I wanted to eat up until my early 30s. And it was about 31, 32, where if I didn't exercise for, if I didn't do proper like running every other day, I would start seeing kind of a bit of weight starting, to come around my neck and stuff. And it was around 34, 35. I didn't even take off. I was still training the normal way I trained after my Ironman. I was not lifting weights at all. And I was just eating the same that I was eating to always feel full. And I would always kind of at the end of the night, I'd drink a beer or two. And then I would eat cookies. I just remember just sitting back and I was like, wait, am I getting fat? And I've never weighed myself. I didn't know what a normal weight was. I really didn't do blood tests. So I was like, okay, this is a perfect time for me to do, my own life hacking, biohacking, and I can experiment on myself and really figure out how to lose weight. And it ended up being body fat and then how to gain muscle. So I'll put a link in the show notes about that whole story. But through that, I ended up I tried keto, I tried slow carb, which I landed on, which was really good. I tried a couple different things and I really like the slow carb diet.
on the side, he said, you have the biggest arteries literally I've ever seen in the world. And I do this test on lots of sport people. So that 20% blockage, your arteries are still bigger than 99% of the population. So he was saying, yes, so just be careful with the cholesterol because it will block up at some point, keep going. But you've got so much space in there, it's causing absolutely zero problem for you. So yeah, if you do enough sport, you can outrun a bad diet. Now, it doesn't mean have a bad diet. It just means that I think exercise is actually more important for most people than diet. Having said that, I still think we still need to think about what we're eating, what we're putting in our bodies in terms of, general health. But it's nowhere near that low level of a keto diet at less than 50 grams of carbohydrate a day. It's just keeping it below. I liken it to a tank of petrol in a car. So I'm trying to keep my tank, as it were, my petrol tank, my liver, between half full and 3/4 full. However, come race day, I'm going to fully load it. I want that tank of petrol. I want to go as far as I can. So I want it as full as possible. Now, this isn't quite as healthy, but then I equate that back to the old 80-20 rule that I'm always banging on about. The body's not going to break down if you take in a little bit too much sugar, once a while, for racing. So that's generally, in a nutshell, my philosophy is that I try and just stay under the threshold of overloading carbs most of the time. But when it comes to racing, I make sure I've got enough carbs in the system to get me through. Looking at a low carb, high fat diet that the keto people go on about, they would say, wow, you've got a high carb diet. So we're talking, I'm still getting at least 50% of my calories from carbohydrates. So it's not a low carb diet by any means. If we get into what I call fad diets and go too much one way, I think that can cause problems as well. And it can cause problems with stress and lifestyle issues. And you're not joining the real world. Going out for a meal with the wife and family, and everyone say, oh, I hope you're not going to, go down your usual route of such and such. And I've lost my sister. She got cancer, which we think was caused by bulimia, because she was anorexic for most of her life. Oh. So I have personal experience of this and going out for meals with her and shoveling around the food around the plate to make it look as though she was eating. So I definitely in that camp of let's try and just get a balanced approach to nutrition with everything. And so not get, as you were saying, into the macros and the micros too much. Just have a general balanced approach to diet. And science does change on this a lot. It's batting backwards and forwards between high carb and low carb and what's best. And I think most people get very confused. I think the takeaway thing for me is I try and keep it simple. I go to a whole food approach. So, for example, people say that, orange juice is not good for you because of the sugar spikes and it's simple carbs. Apple juice is not good for you. But it seems that if you actually eat the whole apple and the whole fruit, you're getting the protective element from the fiber in there. So the carbs that you're getting are good for you. So when it comes nearer to racing, yes, I do shift a little bit more to processed foods because it's easier to get the calories and the carbs in. But, and also it's good to have the processed foods nearer a race because there's less fiber, so there's less risk of actually needing to go to the toilet. The simplest sugars, it burns, it's a cleaner fuel in it, in essence, and so therefore you get the calories without needing the toilet breaks on the way. So
smart, clean eating, that's just normal, healthy eating. Healthy is relative. If you're at the end of an Ironman or a marathon and you have not consumed any calories or sugar, then a Coca-Cola and a burger will be great for you. That'll be probably a healthy thing that you should eat. You don't want to eat celery and a salad at that point. But if you are sedentary and you haven't exercised in months and years and you're constantly eating burgers and drinking Coke, that's not healthy. So everything is subjective in this field of nutrition and diets and health and all that. The best time I found to use a low-carb diet, again, I really like the slow-carb diet because you do get carbs. They are of the legume. So again, beans, that's the best way, and vegetables, they do have a little bit of carbs in them. You almost get a balanced diet, but you're not overloading on the breads and the pastas and the potatoes. Those aren't allowed on the slow-carb diet. I found that specific diet works really well in the off-season for me and when I'm trying to lose body fat. And it only works for a short period of time, for 8 weeks tops, and even 8 weeks is a lot. I'd probably stop after 6 weeks. So it's like a tool for me to go slow carb because even in my base training, I'm still burning a lot of carbs. I'm running 4 or 5 hours a week. I'm still cycling, swimming, lifting weights. So there are carbs being burned in my energy sources. People aren't working out 7 days a week as me. I run everywhere. I literally run with my son. I don't stay still. I run, I ride, commute. I would swim commute if I could. I'm sure some people do that in this world.